Oh my god, she is going to love it. When I show this poem to her, she is just absolutely going to fall in love with me. Okay, roses are red, violets are blue. You are amazing. That's not it, come on man. Roses are red, violets are blue. Tifa, I love. How long have you guys been watching that? Like a few minutes now, or listen up. You didn't see anything, okay? I was just practicing this for the video, okay? This isn't anything serious. I will tell you guys how amazing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is, okay? In exchange for that, you'll forget anything you saw here. Is that a deal that we have right now? Let's talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, because it's amazing. Hello guys, welcome to a new review on the Get Rekt channel, and today we're going to review
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Final Fantasy VII is one of my favorite RPGs, JRPGs in general, and I was very excited when it got a remake. I played Remake and that was amazing, and now we have finally the sequel for this trilogy, 7 Rebirth. Is it worth it though? Is it good? Yes! Stupid question, yet again. No, it's a really great game, and today I'm going to explain in full detail why it is such a great game. So stick around, take some popcorn at home or something else, I don't really care what you take, and let's get on with this review. Let's talk about the presentation of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Of course, visually the game looks very similar towards Final Fantasy VII Remake, but that is not a very big issue because Final Fantasy VII Remake was already such a good looking game, and of course we all know that they are reusing a lot of assets, and the game is of course made on the same engine, on Unreal Engine 4. But that was a very good decision because this way they were able to develop this game much faster than they would usually do with such, especially a big open world game. Hell, they made this game in like 3 to 4 years. That is just absolutely amazing. I absolutely love just the world detail and the textures when you walk around and you see the ground and the forest or the trees or the vegetation around you. There is a lot of detail. You have all these like small bubbles and stones everywhere. Normally I'm not the biggest graphics whore, but man, that looked good. The character models also look very good as well, especially of course my favorite character model, Tifa.
Did you miss us? Loud? Something wrong?
No, nothing. It's just hot.
She looks damn stunning as always. And sometimes I just want to stop and just look around me and see the beautiful environment everywhere. And the game especially is very beautiful when they take away a lot of light. With like a sunset, something like that. This game just looks beautiful then. So the performance for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is actually pretty good. The quality mode runs at a steady 30 FPS and the performance mode runs at 60 FPS. There aren't really any problems of FPS drops whatsoever. I didn't really get those in at least my playthrough. Keep in mind though, my playthrough was only on the PlayStation 5, but you only can play this game, for now at least, on the PlayStation 5, so that's where my experience was. But there is a small issue you should be aware of. The performance mode had some muddy textures, and they were aware of that at Square Enix, and they recently patched that out with a sharpening tool, shall I say, that you can use in the options of the game. And this tool does make a difference, and it makes the game look better in performance mode, at least in my opinion. Also a big shout out to the voice actors of this game, especially for the performance of Cloud, Tifa and Barret. They have done a very good job with this game, and it was already really good in the remake, but in Rebirth they continued this with very good voice acting. You don't have to expect PlayStation 2 voice acting anymore. And of course, the soundtrack is great as well. When you play a Square Enix game, you always expect a very good soundtrack, whether it's Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts or Nier. They are top tier when it comes to the soundtracks, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is absolutely no exception here. You can expect some very good covers and remixes of already known Final Fantasy VII tracks, and they do a good job on this as well. Now, I do have one small nitpick about the presentation. Basically, the UI, especially the menu in the game, it's not amazing in my opinion. I don't know why the hell they changed this from 7 Remake, because in that game it was much better, but I don't know, it just feels very sluggish to navigate through this menu, and it might also be how they just labeled a lot of stuff, but also the UI with the colors, a lot of white here, and sometimes it's just a little bit difficult to read, but also just how they set a lot of the names for the UI menus. Not a fan of this menu, I will be honest with you guys. So another small nitpick I do have to talk about. You have basically these very teeny tiny little circles for your friendship meter. Basically how it works, you press like R1 or L1 I believe it is on the controller, and then in the overworld you will see basically these small circle emoticons with a smiley, and depending on which color it has, the better your friendship is with that character. For some weird reason, they are very small and tiny circles, and it depends on which color it is that you can see how good your friendship is, but some might have the same color if you spend enough time with both of the characters, and then you don't really know which one is in front and has more relationship points, shall I say. Why can't they just have like a normal graph in the settings to see it more clearly with maybe statistics or just like numbers visually that I can see how much it is. Now when it comes to the presentation of this game, I can't really say anything too bad here. I have some small nitpicks with the UI, but that's really it. The graphics look good, frame rate is very stable, there are no bugs, the character models look great, the world design is nice, the voice acting is good, the soundtrack is good. I have nothing really bad to say about the presentation. Good stuff here. Now let's talk about the actual gameplay of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. For Final Fantasy VII Rebirth they opted to go for an open world structure, a la Final Fantasy 16 shall I say. And to be fair, I actually really like Final Fantasy 15. I'm one of the minority people in there. I can even say as a Final Fantasy 15 fan that Final Fantasy 15 does have some problems with a little bit of an empty open world, and I was a little bit afraid when they said, yeah, let's do an open world game. Luckily though, they actually exceeded with that. They basically divided the game into multiple regions, and this was one of the smartest decisions that they could make. Don't worry though, they are maybe a bit smaller than your usual open world game, but they are still absolutely large enough for the right amount of exploration. You can compare it a bit towards The Witcher 3. Maybe a little bit of a weird comparison. In The Witcher 3 you have Skellige, Novigrad and Velen. But in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth you have also these kinds of open world zones, shall I say, but just a little bit smaller, towards 7, 8-ish regions. But every region is unique with its diversity of monsters, but also locales and just the nature. One is a tropical region, the other one is a desert region, the other one is in the grasslands, and the other one is in the mountains, that type of stuff. There are also these boss monsters that are roaming around, and every one of them has their own weaknesses. And Chadley, basically this cyborg kid, he gives you intel on these boss monsters. There are also rift crystals, live stream crystals, shall I say, and if you scan those you actually get a lot more lore on the world of Final Fantasy VII. about the towns that live there and the people, stuff like that. And then there are also summon shrines for the summon monsters. And if you go towards those summon shrines, you do a little mini game, and then you can basically have a easier time fighting these summons in the VR, shall I say, space, where you can get these summons, because these battles are very hard in the beginning. But if you go to the shrines, you can make it yourself easier, and the summons actually get more powerful. So there's an incentive to go in this open world, go to these shrines, and get the data to make even more powerful versions of these summons. And there is one major thing I can absolutely praise Square Enix for here in the gameplay, and that is improved side quests. Look, I really love 7 Remake, and I also actually really like 16, but there is one big complaint I had with those games. The side quests were kind of meh, and 7 Rebirth actually fixes this. And trust me, the side quests here in 7 Rebirth are much more than, hey, kill X amount of rats and go back to the quest giver, or fetch me this item. No. The structure here for these side quests are much more involved with the lore, with characters, and they are just much more interesting to do than like the usual MMO design that also Final Fantasy 16 had, which I had a problem with. 7 Rebirth is just here much more superior. But if you just decide to beeline the main storyline, you will miss entirely important side quests, and you will even miss entirely parts of the open world of the zones you are even in, with like maybe towns or side quests there or mini games there. I highly recommend that you do not miss side quests in this game. I will say that some of these open world activities, especially outside of the side quest, can get a bit repetitive, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth does have that Ubisoft design of open world, and I know not everyone likes that, but in my opinion it's a much better version than what Ubisoft does themselves. So take that how you want it. There are these like towers that you can climb and unlock stuff around you. That is the Ubisoft kind of way, shall I say. It is in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but I don't really mind, to be fair. What I just really appreciate is how Final Fantasy VII Rebirth feels like a journey, just like the original game. In my opinion, for the future, every Final Fantasy game should have this structure, especially if they want to go open world. This is a perfect blueprint of how future Final Fantasy games should be. Now let's talk a bit about the actual combat system of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Final Fantasy VII Remake still has the best Final Fantasy action combat system in my opinion in the whole series, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth just builds on what's there in Remake with the new synergy skills that are available in the game. Synergy skills are basically a dual attack that you do with 2 party members, and every party member can learn a dual attack with a particular party member or even multiple party members. As an example, if you play as Cloud, Cloud might be able to do a certain synergy move with, let's say, 4 party members: Tifa, Barret, Retrothene and Aerith. But there's also a synergy move with Cloud that can be done with only Tifa or only Barret, and every party member can do this and learn these exclusive synergy skills, and that is just really cool in my opinion, and it gives more spice to the gameplay than just having the ATB attacks. But of course the ATB skills are still here in this game, and there is still a lot of tactics that you can perform against different types of enemies. Some enemies might be weak towards certain types of magic. There are even ATB attacks that are magic bound. As an example, you can use fire or you can also use Fire Blade without expending your MP if an enemy is weak to fire. And this is an element I really missed in Final Fantasy XVI, because Final Fantasy XVI was much less tactical based, and that is what I really search for in an RPG. Now, of course, it is absolutely possible to just button mash your way through this game, but I can promise you, you will have a very hard time doing so, especially on the harder difficulties. Prepare to get your ass whooped if you're going to just blindly button mash your way through the game. Also, every character is very fun to play, and they all have their own play styles and abilities and skills that are important in certain moments. Yeah, this combat system is still one of the best I have ever seen in any action RPG so far. I absolutely love it. Man, also the boss fights in this game are also still very epic. Now, they might not be at the same scale as Final Fantasy XVI, but still though, they are great, unique, have their own weaknesses, and a great soundtrack to boot with them as well. Now, we aren't done yet on the gameplay aspect, because Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has a lot of mini games that are just amazing, and they took here a page out of Yakuza's playbook, and there are even brand new minigames that weren't available yet in the original game. Now, not all of these minigames are perfect by any means, but I just really love how they constantly want to spice up the gameplay presentation as well, and diversity of the gameplay. My most favorite minigame so far is the Chocobo racing minigame. That is just straight up a Mario Kart ripoff. Now, you also have field actions that you can perform with certain party members. Unfortunately, they are exclusive towards certain dungeons, but that doesn't really matter. I just really love how that spices up the gameplay pacing even more, and it gives also more detail towards these dungeons. Now, every game has its flaws. Even the most 10 out of 10 games do have some flaws, and unfortunately that is also the same for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, I love minigames as much as the next guy, but man, stop pushing Queen's Blood in the main storyline. Minigames should stay in the side content. Don't push them in the main quest line. If I want to just do the main quest line, I should be able to do that without getting 50 million notifications or reminders in the story that you should, hey, you should check out Queen's Blood. And I get it, the devs are very proud, probably on what they made with Queen's Blood. But man, I am not the biggest card game fan at all, and I would just rather not touch that minigame whatsoever. I wasn't a big fan of it. Also, who the hell designed Kate Sitz, his box throwing mechanic in Shinra Mansion? It is absolutely awful. I'm sorry, Square Enix, but we really don't need to reinvent aiming mechanics in video games, okay? When you do this a second time in a second playthrough though, it won't be as bad as I had it the first time. Those aiming mechanics are awful, as Kate said. But in a nutshell, the gameplay here is just amazing. I absolutely love how they have improved the side quests, but also this combat system that they have here. It's probably the best Final Fantasy combat system yet, and it might be one of the best action RPG combat systems for an action RPG ever. Awesome. Now we need to talk about the story, because it is one hell of a ride. The story, yet again, is one of the biggest highlights of 7 Rebirth, just like 7 Remake. Now, of course, if you are already familiar with the original Final Fantasy VII, you will know what to expect here. A lot of the beats, events, characters, locations, shall I say, from the original Final Fantasy VII are present here in Rebirth. A lot of the same stuff happens in Rebirth as well, just how you knew it, but with just some small minor tweaks along the way basically, and a lot more explained lore. Now I will say, if you aren't a fan of the changes that they did in Remake, Rebirth won't win you automatically over. by any means. It continues on some of the changes in Remake being carried over to Rebirth, and they fully built on that stuff. I will say, if you love what they did in Remake, you will absolutely love what they do in Rebirth. They go very far with some of the story elements here, and it is, shall I say, very much Nomura-like, Kingdom Hearts-like, but I am a very big Kingdom Hearts fan. Nomura gets a lot of flack for this stuff, but he didn't have anything to do with the writing. He even wanted this remake to be much more faithful to the original. The writer for this game is Nojima mostly, so if you have any complaints, point that towards Nojima and not Nomura. But hey, there are some stuff from Kingdom Hearts elements, shall I say, here present in Remake. I really like it. It's a taste, of course, it's an acquired taste, but in my opinion it gives more questions for the old fans to ponder on and think on. I actually like it that it's not a one-to-one remake. Now, I also really love what they do here with the characters. Every character is present in the story in some way, and they all have their own arc, even though if it is a very simple one. As an example, Yuffie gets introduced here in the game, that's also in the original, but she has much more of a presence here. She is a more important character. She isn't just like a side character anymore, and even she has a little bit of a story arc of her own here, even though that gets a little bit more explained in the third part, shall I say. Every character gets its attention, and that is awesome. And all the characters are very well written as well. You can expect the same writing from 7 Remake, which was already great, just continued here in 7 Rebirth.
Think of him as a tag-along. Wait a sec. That is uncanny.
I know, right? Meet Cloud Jr.
Kill me.
And we now also have a lot of explanations towards stuff that wasn't explained in the original game. And that's what I really want to see with this remake. Bigger, more explanations, more story plots. And that's where Final Fantasy VII Rebirth really excels in. Every character is also more detailed now. Sometimes you didn't see the emotions very well in the original because it was a PlayStation 1 game. I mean, you didn't see any of the facial features, how they felt, stuff like that. Some of it was also towards interpretation in the original, and in the remake trilogy you see much more intent here, which I really love. As an example, in the remake trilogy, Aerith and Tifa are much more friends, and you didn't really get that in the original games. And now the impacts of events that happen in the story, shall I say, towards the group and the characters are much more intense. And what they do here with Cloud, it's very wild. I will just leave it at that. All the people that have played the original will exactly know what I'm talking about. I can tell you, Cloud, are you okay, my guy? He is not very sane anymore. I'm just going to leave it at that. Part 3 will be crazy. It will be very dark, I can promise you that. So let's come to the conclusion here. The presentation is great. I love the gameplay, especially the combat system. The open world itself might have some small flaws when it comes to the Ubisoft style, shall I say. If you aren't a fan of that, I fully understand that. They improved on the side quests. That is just a major thing that I love. It feels like a journey, just like the original Final Fantasy games. It's almost like I'm playing back a 90s game. There are a lot of mini games here, and the story as usual is amazing. You can expect the same writing quality from Remake to be carried over to Rebirth. So overall, this whole package is amazing, and it might be one of the best Final Fantasy games ever made. Especially when we look at the modern titles, the HD titles, it probably is the best Final Fantasy game ever made. It's a little bit difficult to compare this to the OG games, the OG Final Fantasy VII, or maybe something like Final Fantasy IX, because this is one part of a trilogy, and I find that kind of unfair to compare them because not the whole story is done. We will have to compare the whole trilogy towards, of course, one of those OG games, because then we have the whole story. But I am pretty sure once the whole trilogy is out, this will be one of the best video game trilogies of all time, next to something like Mass Effect or something like Halo. The final verdict for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a 10 out of 10. It is a masterpiece. I already gave 7 Remake on Ace Ice a 10 out of 10, and they are continuing with the quality, one-upping the combat system, and even now fixing the side quests, which was one of my only complaints in the previous game, and these side quests are much better. A lot of love is in this game. It feels like I'm playing, I said it already, a 90's game again, and it has a lot of balls to make these changes in the story, tell something grandiose, right? This won't be everyone's cup of tea. There will be Final Fantasy VII hardcore Final Fantasy VII fans that might not like this. I fully get that, but I am happy that they are doing this. They aren't playing it safe. Thank you guys for watching this review. I took a long time editing it, filming it, so I would really appreciate it if you guys would maybe give it a like if you like it. And of course, I will be doing much more reviews in the future, so you might want to subscribe to the channel as well. And I will be also doing a lot of video game news and rumors. That's what I usually do for the biggest single player games. If there are rumors towards a new Final Fantasy remake or Final Fantasy 17 in the inevitable future, I will make videos on that. So you might want to subscribe to this channel. Thank you guys for watching as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. I love you all. Bye bye. Now Todd, I'm going to have Todd here end the video as usual. Bye bye guys.